I had been secretly married to Ethan Morgan for 5 years, and it was exhausting pretending I didn't exist. He was America's Golden Boy, a movie star with the perfect jawline, fan-favorite co-stars, and a PR team that painted him as single, free, and emotionally available. Me. I was the ghost in the attic, the woman behind the curtain, the one he came home to at night but never acknowledged in daylight. The first time I saw him kiss Vanessa Blake on set, it was like someone split my chest open and left it gaping. I watched it happen, his hand on her waist, her lips curving into his like it was muscle memory, and I smiled like a fool, like someone who didn't just feel a 10-ton weight crush her ribs. I didn't say a word. That was our unspoken contract. He pretended he wasn't married, and I pretended not to bleed. I tried to make myself care less, flirted with Ryan Bennett on a variety show called Country Soul, let him hold my hand and whisper things that made me laugh just to see if Ethan would react. He didn't. He gave me the coldest, most disinterested look I've ever seen, like I was a stranger begging for scraps. Then, during one of my filming days, I collapsed. I was cramping so badly I couldn't stand. Turned out I was pregnant and miscarrying. I cried as I dialed Ethan's number, shaking, sobbing into the receiver, but he didn't answer. Later I found out he was attending the Golden Medallion Awards, standing beside Vanessa as she clutched a trophy and thanked him for being her mentor, first love, and true soulmate. When the tabloids got wind of my pregnancy, they crucified me, called me cheap, called me reckless. Who gets pregnant before marriage these days, they said. Ethan, ever the PR darling, released a carefully crafted statement that shattered me into pieces. The child is hers. Just hers. Not ours. Not mine. Not something we had created in the shadow of his fame. After 5 years of secret marriage, I realized I was done. I was tired of being invisible. On my birthday, I was scheduled for surgery. Something had been found during a scan, uncertain, possibly serious, definitely terrifying. As I changed into the hospital gown, the nurse asked, "Is anyone from your family coming today?" I smiled tightly and said no. I had no one. The hallway echoed with chatter, 2 interns gushing over celebrity gossip. "Did you hear about Ethan Morgan and Vanessa Blake? They got spotted together at that French cafe again. They were each other's first love, right? Yeah, rumor is they're getting back together. So romantic. I hope they get married." Romantic, they said. I wanted to throw up. The doctor warned me, MS. "Carter, your condition is not minor. It would be better if a family member were present." But I just smiled and signed the papers. What was the point? My husband was busy living a different life, and I was done begging for his attention. The surgery took 3 hours. It went smoothly, but when I woke up, the pain wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. I reached for my phone. The first missed call was from Ethan. My heart did something stupid, it fluttered. I answered. But it wasn't him. It was Vanessa's voice, sweet and fake. "Hi, Madeline. Ethan told me it's your birthday, happy birthday. He just bought me the cutest cake, and there's half left. He's bringing it to you. Don't be grossed out." Her voice grated like nails against porcelain. "He wanted to buy you a gift, but it's late and the stores are closed, so I told him." "Shut up," Ethan's voice cut in. "You talk too much." "See," she giggled. "He used to say that when we were together. Not my boyfriend anymore, though." Someone else in the background joked, "Ethan only acts human around Vanessa. Maybe they should just get back together." My lungs shriveled. Before the tears came, I ended the call and turned off my phone. I didn't return any of his texts. I went back to work. I had a spot on Country Soul, a rural lifestyle show where I was basically the token unknown actress, the one who did all the cooking and chores and got no screen time unless something went wrong. Still, I needed the money. If I missed a recording, they'd dock my pay. Rumor had it that this episode's special guests were a popular, rumored couple, and I didn't give it much thought until I heard the male guest say through a voice filter, "I'm here to find someone. Someone I've missed for a long time." 10 minutes later, the courtyard door creaked open, and there he was. Ethan Morgan. He smiled at me gently, as if he hadn't crushed me piece by piece. I stood frozen, holding firewood, my face smudged with ash. Behind him, Vanessa stepped out in a cream blouse, radiating smugness. So, the rumored couple was them. Ethan barely glanced at me before turning to Mr. Richard Green, the senior host, and greeting him warmly. Vanessa beamed and bowed, "Hello, Mr. Green. We're filming nearby, and Ethan just had to drop by. He said we must visit you." Then she turned to me and smirked. I knew that look. It screamed, "He's mine now." Ethan used to avoid me like the plague in public. For 5 years, he never said a word to me in front of others. Once at an award show, we brushed shoulders, and he looked past me like I was air. And now, here he was, hand-delivering Vanessa. I cooked while watching him from the corner of my eye, and a thought bloomed in my chest: divorce. I used to fall asleep clutching our marriage certificate, grinning like a fool in the dark. I'd wake up in the middle of the night just to make sure the man next to me was real. I chased him for 3 years and married him 5 years ago. I never thought I'd be the first to walk away. But that day, watching him laugh at Vanessa's jokes, I realized the choice had always been his until now. When lunch was served, Vanessa pouted, "I don't eat cilantro," and dumped all her unwanted food into Ethan's bowl. He looked exasperated. She made a goofy face. Mr. Green chuckled, "So are the rumors true?" Ethan said coolly, "They're false." Vanessa's expression faltered, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, Mr. Green, don't get the wrong idea. Ethan and I are just friends. We dated before, but he was too good to me. I need to be independent, you know." The room laughed. "What kind of guy are you looking for then?" Mr. Green asked. She grinned, ticking off her fingers. "Tall. Handsome. Calm. Bookish. Wears black shirts and gray slacks," she described Ethan to A.T. He adjusted his glasses and smirked. "Interesting taste, Mr. Green said." Then, suddenly, he turned to me. "Madeline, isn't Ethan your phone wallpaper? Why so quiet now that your idol is here?" I froze. Ethan looked over, amused. Vanessa whipped out her phone. "Sister Madeline, same taste. I took this photo secretly. Look, Ethan's asleep and I'm leaning close. Doesn't it look like we're kissing? I'll send it to you." I smiled and said, "You two are a perfect match." Then I ate my rice without another word. Ethan frowned and took a long sip of rice wine. After lunch, the cameras went off, and everyone rested. My incision from the surgery began to throb. I went inside to grab my painkillers. Just as I reached for the glass of water, Jill Anderson, Vanessa's agent, stormed in and snapped, "Make a salad for Vanessa. She didn't eat much at lunch." "She can order delivery," I said flatly. Jill slapped my hand, and boiling water spilled on my wrist. "Do you know who Vanessa is?" she hissed. "When she marries Ethan, people will line up to serve her. You should be grateful she's even letting you breathe her air." My patience snapped. I flung the remaining water in her face. Vanessa rushed in. "Madeline, did we offend you somehow? Let's talk it out. We're educated women." Ethan followed and shut the door behind him. I grinned. "Vanessa, didn't you say you ate well? Now you want a salad? I cooked for 5 people, and I'm supposed to be your private chef too. What am I, your mom? Oh right, you and Ethan are getting married soon, and I'm getting blacklisted. Let's talk it out, shall we?" Her face twitched. She took a step forward, smelling faintly of gardenia. That perfume Ethan once gave it to me, and I thought it was a surprise. Turns out I was just a placeholder. I stepped back and snarled, "Get away from me. You smell like vomit." Vanessa's smile dropped. Ethan's eyes darkened. "Madeline," he said coldly. "Apologize." My chest caved in, and tears spilled. "You want me to apologize?" I slapped him. "Don't touch me, Ethan. You make me sick." Vanessa and Jill stood in stunned silence. Ethan's jaw clenched. I winced from the pain. As I reached for more painkillers, Ethan grabbed the bottle. "Where does it hurt?" he asked, ignoring the slap. "None of your business," I whispered. "Get out." Before I could blink, he hoisted me over his shoulder like a bandit. "Put me down." I shrieked. "You're insane." He smacked my butt. "If you keep struggling, I'll throw you in the lake." He dumped me in the back seat of his car. I hit the door hard, my wound reopened, blood seeping through. Ethan paled. He ripped my shirt open, saw the 2-inch scar. "What the hell is this?" "Don't pretend to care now," I spat. He grabbed my hand. "Why didn't you tell me about the surgery?" "I called you," I whispered. "You hung up on me." He stared at me like I'd stabbed him. "You thought I was dead, didn't you, Ethan?" And that was just the beginning. I didn't say another word to Ethan as he drove us back to the condo that had once felt like home but now felt like a museum of broken promises. My body throbbed with pain, and my chest was so tight it felt like I was breathing through a straw. The silence between us was suffocating, like the calm before a storm that had already wrecked everything in its path. He didn't ask if I was okay, didn't apologize for carrying me like a bag of rice, didn't explain why he had ignored my surgery call, just drove, jaw clenched, hands gripping the wheel like if he let go, he'd crumble. I turned my head to the window, pretending not to see his reflection flicker in the glass like a ghost I no longer recognized. Once inside, I collapsed onto the bed, exhausted beyond belief, my stitches pulling with every movement. He hovered, asking if I needed anything, but his voice sounded like static. I pulled the covers over my head and whispered, "Go to sleep, Ethan. You don't have to pretend anymore." He stood there for a long moment before walking away. I didn't care where he went. I just wanted peace. I must have fallen asleep because when I opened my eyes, the room was dim and silent. The scent of coffee lingered in the air. I sat up slowly, muscles aching, and saw Ethan standing by the window, backlit by city lights, a cigarette glowing between his fingers. He looked so out of place in that moment, still, quiet, almost gentle. "Are you hungry?" he asked, voice low. "I made porridge." I didn't answer right away. My mouth was dry, my emotions even drier. I didn't want food. I wanted freedom. I gathered every ounce of courage I had left and said, "Let's get a divorce." The words echoed like a dropped glass shattering on marble. Ethan turned, one brow arched like I had just told him the sky was green. Then he chuckled, like it was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard. "Why?" he asked. "Because I hate you," I replied, staring him dead in the eyes. His smirk didn't even waver. He walked toward me, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and placed his hand against my cheek like we weren't burning in the ruins of our relationship. "When we got married," he said softly, "we promised through sickness and health, till death do us part. We weren't afraid of dying. What's a little hate?" My chest tightened. He wasn't listening. He never did. That night, I screamed. I cried. I threw every word I had ever swallowed back in his face. I reminded him of the award shows where he stood next to Vanessa, the nights I waited for him to come home, the miscarriage I suffered alone. I told him everything I was too scared to say for 5 long years. And he just sat there. Listening. Not fighting back. Not defending himself. Like he thought silence was enough to fix it all. It wasn't. The next morning, I texted the director of Country Soul to apologize for the mess at the variety show. He replied politely, MS. Carter, Mr. Morgan informed us of your condition. Please take care of your health. We understand you won't be returning to filming. I stared at the message, my stomach turning. Ethan had pulled me off the show behind my back. Furious, I called him. He picked up on the first ring. You need rest, he said smoothly. Let me make money. You relax. Ethan, I said coldly. I want a divorce. Don't try to buy me off. He laughed. You can try. And I did. For the next 2 weeks, I contacted every divorce lawyer in the city. Each one backed out within days. Some didn't even return my calls. It was like I was blacklisted from justice itself. Ethan was punishing me in silence, just like he had always controlled me in the shadows. But I refused to be defeated. When I got the callback for an audition on a major motion picture titled Painting Realm, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The movie was high budget, co-financed by an international studio, and the director had won multiple awards. It was the kind of project even Ethan couldn't touch. I practiced the script every night, determined to land the role of the seductive concubinia character full of danger, depth, and rage. It was perfect. At the studio, as I sat in the waiting room reviewing my lines, Vanessa Blake walked in. She smiled sweetly. Madeline, you're here for the female lead too. You'll have to go easy on me. Her agent Jill smirked. Oh, Miss Carter isn't competing for the lead. That role isn't about talent, it's about connections. Vanessa's got Mr. Morgan's full support. I closed the script, slowly stood up, and walked toward Vanessa. I smiled, leaned down slightly. She was shorter and whispered, I'm divorcing Ethan. Didn't he tell you? Her eyes lit up like Christmas morning. Then I added, but he doesn't agree yet. Her smile froze. I tapped her forehead gently with my finger. If you can convince him to divorce me and marry you, that's your business. But until then, you're just a mistress pretending to be a queen. I turned, wiped my hands with a disinfectant wipe, and tossed it in the trash like I was done with the filth. The audition scene was bold. My character, the concubine, attempted the young heir by a lake. I wore a silk robe, dripping wet from swimming, and acted with quiet seduction. My scene partner? Ryan Bennett. Yes, that Ryan, the top star from Country Soul, 5 years younger than me, baby-faced and sharp-tongued. During the show, he'd always called me sister and clung to me like a koala. I thought it was just for cameras. Now, standing this close, his eyes looked different, darker, focused, filled with something that wasn't admiration. As we rehearsed, he whispered the line, "Sister, you've been naughty lately." His hand cupped my jaw, and the moment crackled with electricity. I forgot the cameras. Forgot the pain. Forgot Ethan. And just as Ryan leaned in like he was going to kiss me for real, the door swung open. Ethan walked in, unbothered, and sat beside the director. Apologies, he said smoothly. I'm late. His eyes swept over Ryan, then landed on me. His smirk was venomous. It hit me like a slap was one of the producers. He'd set this up to corner me, to remind me he still pulled the strings. But before I could say a word, Ryan leaned in again, voice low and possessive. Sister, pay attention. It's your turn to kiss me. That wasn't in the script. My breath caught. Before I could react, Ethan snapped, that's enough. He flicked his lighter, eyes like ice. Madeline, go home. We'll notify you later. I clenched my fists, blood boiling. Ryan grabbed my wrist before I could walk away. "No need to wait," he said. "I choose her." Everyone went silent. "I'm the male lead," Ryan added. "My father Robert Bennett is the executive producer. So yeah, I get final say." Ethan's face darkened. "I signed the contract right there." As I finished, I glanced up. Ethan was gone. In the underground garage, someone yanked me into a corner. "Ethan." His mouth crashed against mine before I could fight him off. I slapped him with my purse. "You're insane." He clenched his jaw. "Why won't you let me kiss you? Is Ryan better?" I laughed bitterly. "I'll let you know after the divorce." His face twisted with jealousy and guilt. "You're punishing me," he hissed. "This is revenge for hanging up on you." "No," I said. "This is me waking up." "You don't understand love, Ethan. You just collect people like trophies." He scoffed. "So you'll call me when you need me, and I can't miss a single one?" "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" I asked. "Fine. Let's play a game. For the next 30 days, if you don't hang up on me even once, I won't file for divorce." His eyes lit up. "That's easy." I smiled. "Exactly. But you'll still fail. Because you never learned how to choose me. You only learned how to own me. And Ethan Morgan, your time owning me is up. Because I'm choosing myself. Finally." After the deal was struck between me and Ethan, 30 days, no missed calls. I thought he'd actually try, thought maybe guilt had finally done what love never could, but it only took a week for the cracks to show, because soon after I signed my contract with Painting Realm, my name exploded across Trend Board with rumors so dirty I wanted to crawl out of my own skin, headlines screaming that I had found a sugar daddy, that I was just a washed-up actress sleeping her way into a role, and of course. It didn't take long for people to dig out my connection to Ryan Bennett. Suddenly every scene we had together was dissected and turned into some scandalous soap opera, and when I opened my phone, I saw the top comment under Ryan's latest post was, "How much did she pay you to get that part?" But then Ryan, bless his petty little heart, replied with a repost that blew everything up even more. "You Madeline Carteris, a national-level actress who's won multiple acting awards. Does she really need a sponsor to land a role?" And that shut everyone up for a moment because he said it's so clean, so cool, and yet so loaded that even the loudest trolls had to double-check their timelines, because no one could answer a question like that without exposing how deep the rot really went in the industry, and I realized then Ryan wasn't just helping me, he was declaring something. Something bigger than I wanted to deal with right then, because the way he looked at me when we crossed paths backstage wasn't fan to idol anymore, it was something far more dangerous, it was personal. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that, especially when I hadn't even untangled myself from the ghost of my marriage yet, and speaking of which, Ethan kept texting, calling, sometimes twice in an hour, sometimes just to ask if I'd eaten, and I didn't reply to a single one, because after 5 years of chasing after him, it felt cathartic watching him squirm in the silence, like he was finally tasting what I'd swallowed for years, and honestly, I wanted to drag it out longer, make him wonder every second of every day whether I was with someone else, whether Ryan was touching me the way he never dared to in public, whether I'd finally moved on, and that bitter, petty pleasure fueled me through every costume fitting, every script meeting, and every single uncomfortable scene on set, including the lake scene, which the director insisted we shoot early because of weather, even though the water was still cold enough to take your breath away, and I wrapped myself in layers of heat packs and plastic wrap under my robes, teeth chattering as I dove into that freezing lake once, twice, and then on the third take something went wrong. My stomach twisted so suddenly it felt like my insides were being pulled into a knot, and then I felt it, that horrible warmth spreading between my legs, and as I kicked toward the shore, someone screamed my name, and before I could even process it, Ryan was already in the water, dragging me back up, yelling for help while holding me like I might disappear if he let go, and the second we were back on land, I looked down and saw the blood, thick and dark and unstoppable, staining through layers of costume, through the wrap, and the realization hit me like a freight train. not again, please not again, but it was already happening, and someone asked, Madeline, are you pregnant? And all I could think was, how could I be? Ethan and I hadn't touched each other in months, and less that night, the one when I'd taken sleeping pills because I couldn't stop crying and woke up confused with a bitter taste in my mouth and the faintest memory of being kissed, of someone unzipping something in the dark, and I had written it off as a dream, too dazed to think clearly, but now, bleeding and cold and broken on the ground, I knew the truth. Ethan had come that night, and he had done it without asking, without speaking, without even facing me, and that tiny, brief, almost life was gone now, slipping away with every drop of blood on the stone path, and my assistant Chloe rushed me to St. Mary's, dialing Ethan on repeat, but every call was hung up, straight to voicemail, again and again, and as I was wheeled into the ER, I heard the nurse's portable speaker playing a live stream. Vanessa's voice rang out clear and syrupy sweet, thank you to my first love, my one and only, Ethan Morgan. I share this award with you, and I love you, and then I blacked out, woke up later with a dry mouth and hollow chest, and the doctor told me gently that it had been less than 2 months, probably too early to show up during pre-op testing, but it had been there, trying to grow quietly inside me, until stress and exhaustion kicked it loose, and while I tried to stay calm, to process it like an adult, something inside me cracked, and I curled into a ball and started sobbing until my voice was hoarse, until Chloe grabbed my arm, her face pale as she handed me my phone with shaking hands, and I saw the worst of it, my name trending again, not for the miscarriage, but for the pregnancy, accusations of being indecent, attention-seeking, manipulative, dragging Ethan into scandal, and some of the nastiest comments were obviously from burner accounts, maybe even Sue Yu's team saying I slept around, asking who the father really was, implying it could be Ryan or even someone on the production crew, and something inside me burned so hot it scared me. So I opened my photo album, dug out a high-resolution copy of my marriage certificate, and posted it on Twisnap with one sentence. Preparing to divorce, and I swear within 2 minutes Ethan responded with a bombshell post of his own, the child was mine. We've been married for 5 years. I failed to protect her. Please respect our privacy, and just like that, the internet imploded, comments flying faster than I could read, some scolding him for hiding our marriage, others laughing at the way he played bachelor while cheating in plain sight, and an army of people stormed Sue Yu's page, calling her a homewrecker, a fame leech, accusing her of killing my baby with stress and sabotage, and while chaos unfolded online, I sat in my hospital bed, numb, until the door creaked open past midnight, and Ethan stepped in, eyes bloodshot, holding a thermos like it could fix anything, and when he tried to touch my stomach, I flinched so hard I nearly fell off the bed, hurling the cup at him with all the rage I'd been swallowing. Don't you dare touch me. You didn't even use protection that night, did you? And he didn't answer, just looked at me like a kicked dog, whispering, don't look at me like I'm a stranger, and I laughed, cold and bitter. You are, and he sat there in the dark, silent as the grave, until Sue Yu barged in, dress still smeared with makeup and tears, screaming like a banshee, you ruined me, and Ethan shoved her back, shouting, have you lost your mind? But she kept crying, kept blaming me for her career nosedive, for the hate mail, for everything, even after he tossed the marriage certificate on the floor and told her it was real, that we were never fake, never PR, that she was never anything more than nostalgia, and when she finally left, shamed and trembling, I didn't feel victorious, I felt empty, because none of this brought back what I'd lost, not the baby, not my dignity, not the years of silence, and I knew deep in my bones. No apology, no trending tag, no text message could fix that, not even if Ethan fell to his knees and begged, which he didn't, because of course he didn't. Ethan Morgan never begged, but I didn't need him to, because his silence screamed everything I needed to hear, and I knew then, our story was over, all that was left now was how loud I was willing to make the ending. After the storm of my miscarriage and Ethan's confession exploded online, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would quiet down, but I underestimated how deep the rot went, because the industry doesn't forget scandals, it feasts on them, and even though he finally admitted we were married, finally took responsibility for the baby we lost, the damage was already done, and I didn't have the luxury of hiding away and healing, because Painting Realm was moving forward on a tight schedule, and I had a role to play, one I'd fought for and bled for, and while Ethan was busy trying to look like the remorseful husband online, I was out there in front of flashing cameras and watchful eyes, pretending none of it had cracked me open, and of course Suyu got her karma fast, because her endorsement deals vanished overnight, fans turned on her, and producers dropped her like a lit match, but that didn't mean she stopped trying. Didn't mean she was done clawing her way into places she didn't belong. Because on the day we were scheduled to take final styling photos, she showed up like nothing had happened, fake smiling at everyone, eyes scanning the set until they locked on me, dressed in full concubine costume, deep crimson robes, gold-threaded details, dramatic eyeliner, heavy earrings that glinted under the studio lights, and I knew what she was thinking, that I looked too good, too dazzling for someone who was supposed to play second fiddle. And sure enough, her agent Jill stormed up to the styling director like a pit bull in heels, barking that I was upstaging the lead actress and demanding my accessories be toned down, but the stylist just rolled his eyes and said, "Take it up with the director, he's the one who approved her look," and Suyu, ever the two-faced queen, tried to smooth things over by smiling sweetly and saying, "Madeline's look is really beautiful, very fitting for her role, but I feel so plain in comparison. Maybe I could wear those jade earrings instead. They match my character's temperament better," and she pointed to the antique pair that Fong Ryan had brought from home for the shoot, real family heirlooms he specifically requested I wear, and I didn't even have to say a word, because he stepped in, voice ice cold, saying, "You're here to act, not accessorize. If you don't like your styling, you can leave," and everyone fell silent, eyes wide as Suyu's face turned blotchy with humiliation, and then she really did leave, stomped right off set like a tantrum-throwing teen, which would have been the end of it, but Ryan wasn't done. He made a call to legal right then and there, had a breach of contract notice sent to her team, and within an hour, her role was officially given to Sophia Mitchell, a recent Best Actress winner who walked in like she already owned the part, hugged me like we were old friends, and whispered to Ryan, "You're really a successful fanboy, huh?" And I pretended not to hear, but my ears burned because yeah, I had figured it out by then. Ryan was that fan, the one who had won a year-long pen pal giveaway back when I first debuted, the one I sent monthly handwritten letters to, the one I crafted a beaded protection charm for. The same charm I now saw dangling from his neck every time his shirt dipped just enough under the lights, and I didn't know how to feel about that, because back then I was just a hopeful young actress scribbling dreams on scented stationery, and now I was a burned-out woman navigating the wreckage of a marriage that never stood a chance, and yet every time Ryan looked at me, it wasn't with pity or nostalgia, it was with something that felt dangerously close to love, and I didn't know how to breathe in that kind of warmth without flinching. So I kept my distance, focused on the work, and tried not to fall apart, but Ethan, of course, couldn't stay out of my shadow for long, and after I ignored his texts for days, he showed up at the drama set, not at the studio lot but at a restaurant I dropped Ryan off at for a networking dinner, because I'd found his script in my car and decided to return it, only to hear Suyu's voice from inside the VIP room whining, "Ethan, can't we just make peace? We're in the same industry, we'll run into each other forever, why make enemies?" And Ryan, sounding completely done, replied, "You broke a contract and tried to sabotage someone's image. That's not a mistake, it's a pattern," and before I could even knock, Ethan's voice cut in smoothly, "Does your father know you talk like that to me?" And then he saw me, standing outside the door holding the script, and his face went from smug to stricken in half a second, and I didn't say anything, just placed the script on a chair and turned to leave, but of course he chased after me, grabbed my arm, slammed me against the hallway wall so hard I gasped, and snarled, "You're ignoring me because of him, aren't you?" And I stared him down and answered with his own favorite excuse, "It's just work, you should understand that, right?" And he flinched, like he finally tasted his own medicine, and I knew he was hurting, knew his ego was bleeding out, but it didn't mean I owed him comfort, so I yanked my arm free and walked away, leaving him to stew in the same confusion and silence I'd lived in for half a decade. And later that night, when I saw Ryan again, I felt a little awkward, like my messy life was bleeding into his clean admiration, but he didn't pull away. If anything, he leaned in closer, teased me with that same line every time I did something thoughtful, like when I brought him coffee, caramel macchiato, his favorite, and he grinned, took a long sip, then said in a mock-hurt tone, "I get it, it's just work," and I rolled my eyes and muttered, "You're such a brat," but inside I was melting, because it felt good to be seen again, to be cared for without conditions or contracts, and then came the scene at Lake Crescentview, the infamous bathing scene we'd all been dreading, because the water was freezing and the setup was complicated, and I had to act playful and seductive while half submerged in ice-cold water, wearing barely their silk, and Ryan had to pretend he was sketching me from the shore like a brooding young heir, but the first take was a mess, and the second nearly made me pass out from the cold. So when the director called for one final attempt, I braced myself, teeth clenched, limbs shaking, and jumped in again, telling myself I could push through, I could handle anything, but midway through the take my stomach spasmed and my legs cramped so bad I couldn't move, and I started sinking fast, panic rising as I tried to signal, and just as darkness started creeping into the corners of my vision, strong arms wrapped around me and pulled me up, and the moment I hit the shore, I collapsed against Ryan, gasping, "I think I'm bleeding," and everyone froze, and someone shouted, "Is she pregnant again?" And my brain short-circuited, because it couldn't be, but the pain said otherwise, and as they rushed me into a car, Chloe frantically dialing numbers, I kept thinking, not again. I can't lose another one, but I didn't even know for sure what was happening. My body just knew something was wrong, terribly wrong, and as the car sped through traffic, I clutched my abdomen, terrified that I was about to relive the same nightmare, all over again. By the time I got to the hospital, the pain had dulled into something slow and throbbing, like my body had given up trying to scream and was now just quietly begging for help, and I remember lying there on the gurney with my fingers curled so tightly into the blanket that my knuckles went white, while Chloe kept pacing and whispering urgently to the nurse, and someone kept asking for my insurance card, but I couldn't focus on anything except the deep ache spreading from my abdomen to the rest of me, like my whole body had turned into one giant pulse of dread, and then came the doctor's voice, calm and precise, "It's not pregnancy-related bleeding. Her lining's inflamed, likely due to stress and the recent surgery, but we'll run full tests to be sure," and I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding, not because I was relieved exactly, but because it wasn't another low-sit, wasn't a baby I didn't even know I had, slipping away again, and that tiny, selfish corner of me that still hadn't recovered from the miscarriage finally unclenched a little. But before I could even process that, Chloe burst in with her phone held up, her face pale as a ghost, and said, "It's trending again," and I should have known, I should have expected it, because the entertainment world doesn't rest not for tragedies, not for grief, and definitely not for people like me, and there it was, all over Trendboard, actress Madeline Carter collapses on set again, is she pregnant or just attention-seeking, and people were already in the comments with their theories, dissecting my weight, zooming in on blurry photos of me in costume, comparing the curve of my stomach like they were solving a crime, and even worse, there were those saying I faked it, that I staged the whole thing for sympathy, that this was all just one big PR stunt to steal the spotlight back from Suyue, because apparently women in this industry can't just hurt, we have to be scheming, calculating, and always angling for relevance, and I wanted to scream, to slam my head against the wall and ask the world what I ever did to deserve this circus, but instead I did what I always do. Stayed quiet, I kept breathing, and I got better, faster than anyone expected, because I knew they were watching, waiting for me to crack, to disappear, to melt back into irrelevance, but no, not this time, not when I had finally stepped out of Ethan's shadow and into something that resembled a life of my own, and when I returned to set 2 days later, hair tied up, sunglasses on, and script in hand. The whispers started instantly, but I held my head high, smiled at the crew, and got into costume like it was just another Tuesday, because survival in this world wasn't about truth, it was about persistence, and if I had to be unshakable to be left alone, then fine, I'd be granite, and Ryan noticed it too, the quiet storm I'd become, because when we were blocking a new scene together, he leaned close and said, "You scare the hell out of me sometimes," and I just looked at him and replied, "Good," and for once, he didn't grin, didn't tease, just nodded like he understood that the version of me who once wrote him cheerful fan letters was long gone, and in her place was someone who'd been through fire and come out scorched, not broken, and honestly, the only person who didn't seem to get it was Ethan, because despite everything, the exposure, the scandal, the fallout, kept showing up, kept texting, calling, leaving flowers at the studio, and I ignored all of it, every last attempt at reconciliation, until one night I came home and found him sitting outside my apartment door like some stray dog, hair messy, hoodie pulled low, holding a takeout box and looking like a rom-com cliché, and I should have slammed the door in his face, but instead I stood there staring, and he looked up and whispered, "I made your favorite," and part of me wanted to laugh, because it wasn't about the food, it never was, but something in his eyes was different this time, less desperate, more raw. Like he'd finally taken off the mask he wore for the cameras, and before I could stop myself, I asked, "Why are you really here, Ethan?" And he didn't say "I miss you," didn't say "I love you," didn't even say "I'm sorry," just said, "I ruined you," and the way he said it made my throat burn, because for the first time in 5 years, I believed him, but believing someone regrets something doesn't mean you have to forgive them, so I let him hand me the food, said thank you, and closed the door in his face. And I thought that was the end of it until the next morning when a casting director I hadn't heard from in over a year reached out to say they were interested in me for a lead role in an off-Broadway play, and the timing was too clean, too convenient, so I called Chloe and asked her to investigate, and sure enough, Ethan had pulled strings behind the scenes to land me that offer, trying to redeem himself the only way he knew how, through power. But I didn't want his charity. I didn't want him patching holes in my career to make himself feel better, so I declined the offer and posted a simple message online: "Success earned through pity is still failure," and it went viral in under 20 minutes, especially because people assumed I was talking about Ryan, not Ethan, which only made the gossip messier, and Ryan, for his part, didn't seem offended. In fact, he seemed amused, because later that day, while we were waiting for lighting changes, he showed me a meme someone had made of the two of us with the caption, "It's just work, but make it look like fanfic," and I laughed so hard I snorted, right there in full makeup, and he grinned and said, "You've got that laugh that makes people want to marry you," and I paused, startled, because it didn't sound like flirting, it sounded like truth, and it scared the hell out of me, because I wasn't ready to be loved again, not when I was still unpacking everything I had buried, and Ryan must have sensed that, because he backed off, gave me space, never pushed, just kept showing up in little ways: extra coffee in the morning, an umbrella when it rained, standing in front of me when fans got too aggressive. And it was in those quiet acts that I started to realize maybe healing didn't always come from grand gestures, maybe it came from someone simply staying, not running, not demanding, just being there. And the more he stayed, the more I found myself softening, not toward him exactly, but toward the idea that I could start over, and maybe not be haunted forever by the wreckage Ethan left behind. But of course, life doesn't like clean transitions, so just as things started to feel normal again, just as filming reached its final week and the crew was buzzing about wrap parties and bonus checks, someone leaked an old behind-the-scenes clip of Ethan talking to a crew member about our marriage before it was public, basically bragging that he kept me hidden because some women are better off as a mystery, and the backlash was immediate, brutal, relentless. Fans turning on him like wolves, dragging every skeleton from his clothes. This fake college degree, his bar fight from 2012, the unpaid internships he ghosted, and within hours, he was trending again, this time not as a misunderstood romantic, but as the manipulative narcissist people always kind of suspected he was. And when I saw it all unfold, I didn't feel triumphant, I didn't feel vindicated, I just felt numb, like watching a storm from behind glass, knowing it would never touch me again. And that was the moment I truly understood, I was finally free. After the internet devoured Ethan like he was its favorite meal of the year and spit out his reputation like a chewed-up headline, I thought maybe that would be it, he'd finally go quiet, retreat from my world and let the wreckage settle. But no, of course not, because when a man like Ethan loses control, he doesn't disappear, he doubles down. And just a week after the clip leaked, I woke up to a knock at my door and opened it to find a thick envelope on the floor with no name, no note, just cold formality and legal weight. And when I tore it open, my heart stopped. Inside were divorce papers, already signed by him, along with a short letter in his handwriting that simply said, "I won't be the reason you stay stuck." I let go. But I never stopped watching, and I stared at those words for so long the morning light changed color, and even though this was what I had wanted for months, this was the finish line I'd bled and broken myself getting to, I didn't feel victorious, I just felt hollow, like I had finally reached the top of the staircase and realized the room was empty. And I didn't cry, not even a little, I just walked to the sink, washed my hands like I was cleansing myself of everything, and signed the papers. 2. Because I wasn't going to let sentimentality be the final chain. And when Chloe saw the sealed envelope later that afternoon, she didn't say anything, she just gave me a hug and nodded, and that night, for the first time in years, I slept with the windows open and my phone turned off, no fear of missed calls, no dread of headlines, just quiet, blessed quiet, and the next morning, I walked onto set for our final shooting day like a woman newly baptized, hair tied in a low bun, wearing that deep red costume I used to dread because of how exposed it made me feel, but this time, I wore it like armor, like a declaration, and everyone noticed, the crew, the director, even Sophia gave me a little smile like she knew I'd stepped into something new, and Ryan looked at me like I was a sunrise he wasn't expecting to see again, and when we wrapped that final take, that slow lingering kiss in the courtyard before the concubine disappears into legend, he held me a little longer than the director called for, and when the cameras cut, he didn't let go right away, he just looked at me and said, "You really don't know what you've done to me," and I laughed softly and replied, "You're not the only one," and I meant it not because I had fallen in love again, not yet, but because somewhere along the line I had stopped drowning, and that in itself was a kind of miracle, and after wrap, when everyone gathered for the cast dinner, the energy was celebratory, warm, but also bittersweet. Like we all knew this little pocket of safety and purpose was about to dissolve, and I sat at the end of the long table sipping wine when Ryan slipped into the seat beside me and handed me a small envelope, not fancy, just folded cardstock with my name on it in the same handwriting from those fan letters years ago, and I didn't open it right away, just stared at him like, "You're really doing this," and he just smiled and said, "Don't worry, it's not a proposal." Not yet, and I rolled my eyes, but my heart did this stupid flutter anyway, and when I finally did open it later that night in my hotel room, there was a single sentence written inside, "Whatever you need, I'll be what you need. Friend. Partner. Witness. Just say the word," and it made me cry, not loud, not ugly, just soft tears that fell without force, like something had been released, and I knew then that even though Ethan had taken years from me, even though I had walked through hell and back trying to be enough for someone who never really chose me, I had finally arrived at a place where I didn't need to be chosen to feel worthy, I chose myself, and that was everything, and in the weeks that followed, I took a break from screen work, shifted toward theater like I had always dreamed of, small productions at first, then bigger ones as word got out that I was serious, and the stage, oh God, the stage saved meth silence before the curtain rose, the way the audience breathed in unison during a powerful scene, the rawness of it all, no edits, no cuts, just truth, and Ryan came to every opening night, sometimes in a hoodie and cap like he was hiding, sometimes in full tux like he was proud to be seen, and he never missed a bow, never left without flowers, and slowly, without me realizing it, he became part of my rhythm, not as a replacement, not as a rebound, but as someone who simply stayed, and we never defined it, never forced labels onto something that felt bigger than that, until one night after a show when he met me backstage and said, "You know, when I was 16 and you sent me that little charm, I thought you were magic," and I laughed, brushing off the nostalgia, but then he added, "You still are," and for once, I didn't deflect, didn't change the subject, I just looked him in the eye and said, "Maybe this time, I get to be magic for myself," and he smiled like that was all he ever wanted to hear, and from that moment forward, we were something soft and solid, not perfect, but intentional, and as months passed, I watched Ethan start keep falling, more scandals, more people speaking out, even his old management team dropped him, and Suyu. She tried to crawl back too, posted cryptic apologies online, tried to spin narratives about trauma and misunderstanding, but the damage was irreversible, and one day I saw her trending again, not for a comeback, but for being rejected at an audition she should have walked through, because no one forgets when you rip open another woman's life for your own gain, and in the final act of it all, I saw a photo on Twisnap. Ethan sitting alone outside a coffee shop, hair graying, face thinner, holding a newspaper instead of a phone, and for a second, I felt this pang of something, pity maybe, or closure, but it passed, because he had made his choices, and so had I, and I no longer lived in the orbit of his consequences, and that night, at the theater, when I stood in front of a sold-out crowd and delivered the final monologue of the play, a story about a woman who finally chooses herself after a lifetime of erasure, I looked out and saw Ryan in the front row, holding up the same little fan sign he'd brought to every performance, "Thank you for existing," and I smiled, bowed deep, and thought, this is what it feels like to win, not revenge, not applause, but freedom, and knowing that after everything, I am no longer a hidden name behind someone else's spotlight. I am the damn light now.